Welcome back to 97.7 FM, KC Radio, and an hour of power in leadership with me, Ryan Gomez. Um, it's an absolute honor and a privilege to be here speaking to you once again on a 97.7 FM, KC Radio. Thanks for all the feedback and all the messages I've been getting on Facebook and my email. And it's, I'm grateful for a lot of the messages that have come through and keep coming through. Keep sending those messages through, or connect with me on Facebook, which is www.facebook.com/Ryan Gomez segment. Also, we are streaming live on the web, which is www.kcradio.com.au. In saying that, I always say this, it's an absolute honor and a privilege, and I thank you for a lot of the international listeners that are listening out there and give me the feedback on this program, an hour of power and leadership, that is. Look, keep the messages coming through. I have listeners in Malaysia, in Singapore, in Thailand, in India, in Sri Lanka, and the US and the UK. So thank you for listening, and it's great odd hours of the day as per se around the world. But hey, you know what? We are up in Cranbourne, 97.7 FM KC Radio. I'd like to talk about, I was actually connecting with a few people just the other day, and we were talking about the next generation of leaders per se. So they said to me, Ryan, what will be the next generation of leaders, and how do we educate the next generation of leaders? And that's a great question. And I said, well, will the next generation of leaders be innovators, or will they be followers? Will they be strong, resilient, problem solvers, or just servants of the status quo? I don't know. And to me, the answer everything lies in this word called education. Education, how we adapt to education and how we educate people with these wonderful opportunities will determine what our leaders are in the distant future. And this is what I believe. So what do educators need to provide for the next generation of positive, innovative leaders? See, if the core competencies are assumed, engineers will need to engineer, right? Accountants will need to account. Writers will need to write, and so on and so forth. So what will be the key elements of an education that might help students become lifelong learners and be successful in multiple, career paths per se? And today, the young people are looking at multiple career paths. So for me, some of the elements that are really critical is, the first thing I'd like to talk about is language. Language, we live in language, we create with language. Opportunities around us are with language, innovation, creativity, solving problems, leveraging opportunities. All this demand highly developed language skills. It's language that brings to life and inspires and creates and connects with organizations. The way you connect with organizations. Now, with powerful language skills, leaders, without powerful language skills, let me put it this way, leaders struggle to gather resources, to bring clarity and action and lead them in that kind of conversation, or be innovative in taking some action about things. With language, and the language goes beyond just writing skills or the odd English class or two. The resilient, creative leader is one who immerses themselves in words, who's, I believe, is comfortable with the complex language. Now, business leaders cause action with words. And you see some of the most powerful leaders in the world, they just don't communicate, with this word, with language. They connect with language. And that is the absolute key. It's connecting with people. And that's what language is all about. It's connecting with people. So all these skills, at the end of the day, your leadership skills determines the language around you. So that's number one for me, and that's the absolute key. Now, also, another key for me is leadership. We hear this all the time, and leadership. As a discipline, a thing to be practiced and learned, leadership is, let's put it this way, is probably the lowest priority in education these days. And this is how I see it. Innovation, problem solving, and invention are are much more about failure than the occasional success. The concept of successful failure, I call it successful failure. It is absolutely critical to develop leaders, and something educators should teach, at every possible course per se. If I had in my childhood when I was growing up, if I had a class that had Wealth 1 and Wealth 2, I'm pretty sure, I don't know, I would have jumped for something like that. Well, that is why it's important to adapt to this thing called successful failure. We need to teach people that it's okay to fail. It is fine to fail. And students should be given multiple opportunities to experience that thrill and certain failure, and of taking account and being accountable, taking charge. Our education tends to be success focused. This is how I look at it. And rewards high achievement. But leadership requires putting yourself on the line and consistently taking risks. Without exception, sooner or later, if you stick to what you believe in and you keep at it, you will achieve the success you want. But hey, you know what? It will also answer the question sooner or later whether you stick to it or whether you drop out of things. And look, without this element of leadership and learning personal growth, the educational experience, I believe, is flat. So then I also like to talk about authenticity. Learning about yourself is probably perhaps the most single and the most important outcome of a powerful educational experience. Self-awareness can lead to an everlasting authenticity, if I can put it that way, which in turn leads to what? Powerful leadership skills and leadership abilities. Now, authenticity is not about accept me for what I am. Hey, you know what? You hear people say, hey, you got to accept me for what I am. But the authentic leader are self-aware, willing to learn and adapt to the change. Be who they are in service to others. And that is the absolute critical thing about authenticity. It's about being in service to others. How many times we hear this and people say, accept me for who I am. But it's about being yourself, yes, but of being of service to others. And that's what it's all about. I come here to the radio station, I do this program. I've been doing this program for the last year and a half, 2 years or so. What do I get out of this, right? It's a community radio station. What do I get out of this? It's a passion of mine. I love doing what I'm doing. I'm serving people. People listen to this program and say, hey, you know what? I picked up a nugget or two and I've taken it and I've ran with it and used it in your life. And this is what it's all about. I invite successful entrepreneurs, guests on my program, businessmen, women have gone through tremendous failures. And yes, we learn something from them. We take something from them. And then I talk about passion and purpose. Passion and purpose is an absolute key to me as well. How does one determine one's purpose? What you are passionate about, it has to be developed and built around inspiration, and therefore it is inspired. In my experience, what I've identified is, if we find out what our strengths are, and if we take them and plug them into our passion, and with a little bit of inspiration, or with a bit of inspiration, that then will determine our purpose. Now, as educators out there, I ask this question. Are we helping people find their passion? Are we helping people find their purpose? Are we rewarding people with experiences? Now, it's people say to me, right, I have no time to follow my passion. I have no time to follow my purpose. I've got to get out there and make the money. I've got to put food on the table. I've got to feed the kids. Absolutely. But if you look at a generation of leaders, or even the past generation of leaders and the future generation of leaders, they are innovative. They are creative. They have a passion about what they do and have a real purpose in life about what they do. Now, I also, and this is something I'd like to talk about, is resilience. It is a cliche nowadays, but nevertheless, it's true. As long as human beings have been around, they've been inspired by doing something in life. Everyone will have multiple jobs, careers in the future, life experiences, and rarely will any one way of thinking or one career path will have a long life shelf. And what I mean by that is, if you look, I went down to, I was at Mount Bulau. This was about two years ago, and I went down with my family, and I was there with my family. I was having some conversations with, with my generation. I was having some conversations with some of the younger generation. And this is how the language they spoke. When I spoke to people of my generation, people said to me, I had this conversation, and he said to me, Ryan, so tell me, what do you do for a living? I want you to be in track with me in this. Now, they're asking me, Ryan, what do you do for a living? And now this is the language we speak. But I moved away, and I was talking to some of the younger generation, the early 20s. And the guy turned around to me and he goes, dude, what do you like doing? Two different conversations. Here you have the current generation, or my generation, of talking about what do you do for a living. And here you have the younger generation saying, what do you like doing? It's absolutely, and this is the future generation we're looking at. The future generation is looking right through their boss, right through their manager, doing an interview for the organization, and thinking about their next job, thinking about their next, what they're going to achieve in their next career. What is their next career path? So for them, they're multitasking. So if you're going to create the next generation of leaders, to me, it's very important to find out and to help our educators, as a matter of fact, give them the necessary resources and be with them, on track with them, and help them. You're listening to 97.7 FM KC Radio on an hour of power in leadership with me, Ryan Gomez. If you want to get onto my Facebook page, it's www.facebook.com/Ryan Gomez segment. We're streaming live to air, which is www.kcradio.com.au. Let's take a short break, and we'll be right back after this.